Taped from New Jersey, it's the SNL Nerds, the show where two comics from New Jersey nerd out about Saturday Night Live. I'm your co-host, John Trumbull.
And I'm your co-host, Darren Patterson.
Hey, Darren, how's it going? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, sir. First show of the new year. New year, new us.
Well, I mean, technically, this is our second show of the new year because our last show was released on New Year's Day.
Happy New Year. Second new show of the new year. New year, you us.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like it because, we recorded that one before the new year came around, but so.
Right. But this is the first time we have a guest on the podcast for the new year.
This is true. Our first guest of 2024. We're happy to welcome our friend who's a fellow stand-up comedian. He's a co-producer of the Hell Yeah Comedy Show. Our friend Josh Wells. Thank you. Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome, Josh.
Thank you for having me. What an honor to be the first guest of the new year, 2024. Let's do it.
That's right. You're setting the tone for every guest we will have.
I don't know if I can handle the pressure, but I'll try my best.
You're cracking under the pressure already. I can't do this, man.
Yeah, and as luck would have it, we saw Josh just this past Thursday night. He was a performer at the Non-Pro comedy show over in Montclair, New Jersey, at Just Jake's that they do typically first Thursday of every month.
Yeah, so come out, guys.
Yeah.
Fun time.
Yeah, it was a fun time. You had a good set, as I recall. Darren did okay.
That's par for the course.
Yeah,
I think everyone had a good set. It was a good show.
It was a good night.
Yeah, it was. It was. I did not perform. I was just there as a spectator, as a supporter. But it was a good show, good stuff, and.
We're having you on the podcast today, Josh, because a little birdie told us, named Frank Kablawi, he let us know that you had recently seen the movie that we're going to talk about on today's episode, 200 Cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I guess it's all incredibly well timed. My friend Gina, also a stand-up comedian, very funny.
Mm-hmm.
She lent me a DVD copy, like we used to do in the 90s. And,
right.
And, because it's a New Year's movie, she told me to give it a watch. And so I did. I'm really glad I did. A big fan of this movie. I fell in love with it immediately.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's good that she lent you the DVD because this is a movie. When we first talked about doing this movie, John and I, we both wanted to do it because it's like a New Year's Eve movie.
Yeah.
This is like around New Year's time right now.
And it's got people we like in it. The big ensemble comedy. We got Ben Affleck, Casey Affleck, Dave Chappelle, Angela Featherstone, Courtney Love, Jay Moore, Nicole Ari Parker, Martha Plimpton, Christina Ricci, Paul Rudd, and other people. But those were all the above the title names.
Right.
And SNL alum Janine Garofalo.
Yes.
Jersey's own Janine Garofalo. And Jersey's own Jay Moore.
Yeah, I did not realize that there were two SNL alums in this.
Yes. And Jersey's own Christina Ricci, as you mentioned before.
Yeah.
So we really wanted to do this one, but this is a little tricky because this movie is not available to stream anywhere, like not for rent, not like on any platform. You can't find it on Tubi, Pluto, nothing. And it's so strange. You can only get this either A, if you have the DVD, if you could track that down, or B, through certain other website means, we'll say. We'll just keep it on the hush.
Yeah. I came across an article online recently that said that you can buy the DVD on Amazon now, but for some reason, before there was a time where you couldn't even buy a DVD like online, and people were selling copies for like $70, $80 on eBay.
That is nuts.
Yeah, and I guess the people at Paramount was like, well, we could use that $70, $80. Let's release this movie again.
Yeah, I guess it was out of print. I mean, this is a movie, it's sort of fallen down the memory hole. But before we get into the movie, I think we should ask Josh about like his history with SNL as a show. Like, are you a fan of SNL? What is your SNL origin story? Do you like a particular era? Have you never cared for the show? Where do you fall?
I'm like it starts with Wayne's World for me. I think
Okay.
that was like the era when I was a kid, but I started watching it, and I was I was kind of like a rocker kid, so that stuff really stuck with me. And from there, you just had this like great cast. Adam Sandler coming in and Farley, Chris Rock. I know I'm missing 25 good names probably, but it was just this great era. I also think like SNL is one of those things. It's almost like high school. Like your favorite era is whatever cast was there when you were in high school.
Yeah,
And that's kind of what I'm stuck with. I call them like the grunge era almost.
Mm. Yeah, no, I could definitely see that because, like, I follow a lot of SNL people online, and a lot of them are younger than my old ass, and like
Right.
you can definitely see like some people praise Kristen Wiig and Bill Hader and Sudeikis in that era, and then there are people even
Right.
younger who think Kate McKinnon and Cecily Strong, like that's the almighty era. Like
Yeah.
you definitely see like where people allegiance lies depending on how
That's
old they are.
Yeah, SNL's such an institution that like aging with it is kind of weird. You start watching it and everyone on the show is older than you, and then like you said, it gets to a point where you're so much older than the current cast members. They don't even look up to your generation; they look up to one or two generations after, and you're like, wow, okay, time
Yeah.
keeps on slipping through the vortex of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I mean, yeah, when I first started watching the show, it was in mid to late '80s during the Dana Carvey, Phil Hartman, John Lovitz years, uh, and yeah, and I've kept with it ever since. And yeah, now I think everyone on the show is younger than me. I think I even have a few years on Keenan Thompson. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
they had Leslie Jones in there for a few years, and that felt okay. I was like, oh, I think she's a little older than me, so.
yeah,
yeah,
she is. Like she has a few years on us, but yeah, it's
on YouTube, I think I'm
okay.
still older than Leslie Jones, but I'd
I
have to
was
look
I
it
was
up.
trying to be nice, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is one of those things. Like age does kind of play a big part in what era the show is that you think is the creme de la creme, the best era of the show ever.
Hmm. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Do
Um,
you still watch the show? Josh?
I phase in and out a lot. I really have not been keeping up with this season, but the season before this, I was kind of into it. I was like actually DVRing it and actively watching it, usually on Sundays. But
Hmm.
I don't know. Sometimes I just kind of slip away, like something else in my TV watching takes its place for a while. But it's always there, and I'm always thinking about it.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah. Like you said, it's an institution, and we're going into an election year now, so I'm sure there are going to be a lot more eyes on the show. It's an election year, and then we're getting close to the 50th season, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. It'd probably be a lot of a lot of star-studded cameos.
oh yeah.
SNL, they do love their stunt casting. Yes.
We're gonna get a whole like all the stunt. It's gonna be like Avengers Endgame. It's gonna be an Avengers Endgame level of stunt casting.
Yes.
When the
Yes.
Big 5 rolls around.
Right.
So Josh, you said that you saw this movie like back when it was first released in 1999. I know I didn't see this movie back in the day. Darren, did you?
No, I did not. So this movie came out February 26th, 1999. It actually came out a week after Office Space, which is another movie we talked about on this
Oh,
podcast. And yeah, it was directed by Risa Braman Garcia. This is her. It was her first directorial debut, and from what I saw on IMDb, she's primarily a casting director. Like she's
Huh.
worked as a casting director in a bunch of big films like JFK, True Romance, Wall Street, Fatal Attraction, and this is like her first time directing. And this film was written by Shanna Larson, which, if you look on IMDb, this is the first and only thing she's ever done. Which is,
wow.
Huh.
I guess she got out the industry after. I don't know, but yeah, it was very very interesting. This movie had a budget of 6 mil, and it made 6.8 mil. So it just
Woo! $3.8 million. Yeah.
For that cast, oh man.
yeah, it was weird because like I think they mentioned yeah like a lot of these uh the people in this movie were like just hadn't broken yet. Like
Hmm.
I think Ben Affleck had just came out of Goodwill Hunting when this movie came out, and Kate Hudson really wasn't super known. I mean, she kind of broke, and she
Yeah.
pretty much broke in like Almost Famous. Paul Rudd really wasn't that known.
He wasn't quite Paul Rudd yet. He was like
Yeah,
guy from Clueless, Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
And
it was
I
almost
think
like, let's
go
see
ahead.
if this guy. It's almost like let's see if this guy, because I think everyone was expecting Alicia Silverstone to be the big star to come out of Clueless,
I mean,
and
she was, and then
Yeah.
Batman and Robin happened, and that really just killed most of her movie career, sadly.
Yeah, yeah, it's a bummer. But yeah, like, yeah, a lot of these people in this movie weren't really household names. I mean, you could say Courtney Love pretty much was for sure, like, from the
Yeah.
band Hole and everything. Christina Ricci was pretty well known, Addams Family and whatnot. But yeah, for the most part, a lot of these people weren't really that well known. So to get all these people together,
it's before Chappelle's Show.
Yes, yes.
It's Janine Garofalo. I think she was known as a comedian mostly, or the girl from Reality Bites, and
right.
Jay Moore. He hadn't done a whole lot yet. I think he'd already done Action by this point. I think that was around '99.
Yeah. I remember Action. I kind of like that show.
Having a moment. It was a good show. I enjoyed that show.
Yeah, Jay Moore kind of had a moment, like around, like after Jerry Maguire came out, and he was kind of doing stuff. He was like about to pop, but it never.
He did that movie with Jennifer Aniston. I think it was called Picture Perfect.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, he had a bit of a moment, but
he did have a bit of a moment. It didn't. Yeah, and I think this might be Casey Affleck's first film.
Oh wow.
I think
wait, this was after Good Will Hunting or before?
This movie,
Good Will Hunting was like late '90s, I think. So
Casey had like a bit part in that, right? Good Will Hunting.
He probably did. Yeah,
he did. He was like one of the
homies.
Yeah, one of the homies, as the kids say.
Yeah, Good Will Hunting was '97, and he has a supporting role in that. So yeah,
okay.
And he had a small role in Chasing Amy. Okay, so not his debut.
Okay.
But it was very early in Casey Affleck's career. He was still just Ben Affleck's brother at this point.
Right.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, so I mean this movie is so like when this movie came out, I hadn't seen it. This came out, I was still in college, and like I knew the movie come out because, I was a huge Chappelle fan and I love Garofalo, but for some reason I still didn't check it out. And I was like, I don't know, this looks like whatever. So I just never saw it until now.
Yeah.
And this movie's a bit of a trip. It's a movie that's kind of hard to describe almost, because I mean basically there's no real plot per se. It's just kind of more of a loose guidelines. Basically the movie takes place in New York City, 1981, New Year's Eve, and it kind of follows all these people's kind of trials and tribulations on that one night as they try to get to this one party happening in the village. And that's really the plot of it.
That's it. Yeah, it's really just a bunch of people meandering around New York City, and are we going to this party? Should we go to this party? I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to go to this party. Do you want to go to this party? And yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a '90s thing in movies that you would see more, like a lot more meandering, and just like a loose thread to tie everything together. I feel like this is like I don't know, almost like last call for that kind of movie in that decade.
Yeah, this movie really reminded me of like Dazed and Confused a bit, because like I remember the first time I saw that movie, I was like, "What is this? This movie isn't about anything. It's just about a bunch of like high school kids on the last day of school fucking around in the '70s." Now it actually really is.
And it all leads up to a party in both cases.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and both have pretty damn great soundtracks too. I will admit that.
Oh yeah, the soundtrack's great.
The soundtrack to this is pretty banging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing on the Wikipedia page the music was by Bob Mothersbaugh and Mark Mothersbaugh, and I don't think there's any actual score. It's all just hits from 1981 or a few from 1982. So
yeah, that is pretty crazy. Like this is like I could tell this was like an MTV joint because literally every 5 minutes a song plays, which makes
and also like at one point there was at least one scene where I was like, I wish they would turn the background music down a little bit because I'm having a little trouble making out the dialogue. That's like MTV does that a lot, and like the CW does that a lot, where they're blasting the song and you're just like, wait, what did they say?
Right. It's almost as if the soundtrack was the second with another character in the movie.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And then back then, they're probably also, see, you're selling soundtracks back then. I mean, I feel like that was, that was an actual thing you could sell in '99 still.
I know. Yeah. People would buy like a physical thing, or, because it was 99, they were like, I'm going to go illegally download this on Napster.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember that being a big thing, like especially after, in the 90s, like after like Pulp Fiction came out and that soundtrack like was such a blowaway hit and just like blew up. Like
Hmm.
people kind of started to do that, like take more care into crafting their soundtrack and trying to make it like their soundtrack pop like Pulp Fiction did. Like, I know, like a lot of the Edgar Wright movies have great soundtracks.
Hmm.
I really like the soundtrack to Big Lebowski. I really like the soundtrack to what else were they listening to a lot? There's like a bunch of soundtracks that it's kind of kept on heavy rotation
Yeah.
Also,
back in the
like,
day.
soundtracks were kind of cool back then because that was like a playlist. That was like
Yes,
somebody's list, and so you got like a bunch of different songs for different bands. It was almost like the director made you a mixtape.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. That's what it feels like when like James Gunn does a movie. It's like, oh yeah, it's now it's time for my latest James Gunn mixtape with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies or whatever. I actually was reading that Elvis Costello, who you hear several of his songs in the movie, and he's got like a little cameo in the movie. He actually helped the filmmakers out a little bit with like helping them get the rights to certain songs of his, and he also made recommendations for things that the characters would likely be listening to in 1981. So I'm like,
That's
oh,
pretty
that's
cool.
pretty cool. That's nice of Elvis.
That's pretty nice. Yeah, I was wondering how did they get Elvis Costello to work on this? Like somebody must have had an in or something. Because yeah, like there's that one scene where he does make a very quick cameo where
He does.
Paul Rudd and Courtney Love's characters are having an argument, and he walks right between them, saying, "Oh, excuse me," and then
Yeah.
and then that's it. And then Love and Paul just keep arguing, like they make no
Yeah.
mention that you know.
Neither of them
Elvis,
recognizes him. Like Paul Rudd even just gives him a look like, what the fuck is this dude doing? Why did he walk between us? And and it's kind of funny because I'm like a huge freakish Elvis Costello fan. He's probably my favorite musician of all time. And uh, in the early 2000s, he was re-releasing a lot of his albums, and he wrote like these really extensive liner notes um, on them. And he talked about in the liner notes for Goodbye Cruel World, he
mm,
talked about when he was shooting his cameo for this movie, one of the actors brought him that album to sign, and he felt like momentarily. I don't know if ashamed is the right word, but he felt kind of awkward because he'd written in an older version of the liner notes for that album. Congratulations, you've just bought our worst album.
oh,
Because it's not a well regarded album in general. He said, I think he said in this that I think it's the best album I could have, or it's like the worst possible production I could have made on this particular collection of songs. He doesn't think he did most of the songs well, um,
okay. All right,
and
well,
and I'm sure that was Paul Rudd, because I know that Paul Rudd is an Elvis Costello fan. On the commentary for The Shape of Things, the Neil LaBute film that Paul Rudd did. How it's the soundtrack of that movie is all Elvis Costello songs, so they spend half of the commentary just talking about how cool Elvis Costello is. So, so Paul Rudd probably has a signed copy of the Elvis Costello album "Goodbye Cruel World," um,
wow.
and Elvis Costello was just kind of sheepish about signing it because he doesn't like that album very much.
Wow. I mean, good on him to have a bit of a sense of humor about it too, and just acknowledge that yeah, this ain't my best type of album.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not one that I pull out a whole lot, but Martha Plimpton's character in this, Monica, she is obviously a big Elvis Costello fan, and she's throwing the big New Year's Eve party, and her big subplot is no one's going to attend. It's just her and her friend Hillary, who let me see which was that actress's name, um, Catherine Kellner is there, and yeah, Martha Plimpton's big thing is like, oh, no one's gonna come to my party and no one likes me as a result.
Yeah, like she basically kind of goes through that whole, the stuff a lot of people, I guess, that throw parties go through their mind. Were like, what if no one shows up? What if this party's a snoozer?
Yeah.
Right.
And like, yeah, like everybody's gonna be talking about it, being like, oh, that party was super lame, and
Yeah.
just getting in your own head about it. This is why I don't throw parties, people. I just go to them.
Lesson
Yeah.
learned.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I had a friend who said like you can never really enjoy your own party because you're always just kind of running around trying to make sure that everybody's having a good time, that the drinks are flowing, everybody's got stuff to eat and stuff, and yeah,
Yeah,
it can be stressful.
yeah. You gotta make sure no one's humping in your bedroom or stealing shit. Stuff like
Right,
that.
Right.
right, right. And okay, on Wikipedia we've got a good rundown of the various subplots, and I can just run those down real fast. We've got Monica's cousin Val and her friend Steffi, who are played by Christina Ricci and Gabby Hoffman. They are two girls from Ronkonkoma, and they get lost in the seedy Alphabet City section of the borough and wander into a punk club where they meet Dave and Tom, who have a package they need to deliver.
Ooh.
And I know Casey Affleck was one of the Dave and Tom duo. I
He
don't know
was
who the other guy was.
David. That was actually Guillermo Diaz,
Okay.
who was also in the movie Half Baked with Dave Chappelle.
Oh
Oh,
wow.
okay.
Small
Yeah,
world.
but he's also probably best known for being in the TV show Scandal with Kerry Washington too.
Ah, okay. All right.
But yeah, that's Guillermo Diaz. He was also in a couple episodes of Chappelle's Show too. So I guess part of me thinks this is maybe where. Actually, wait, no, because like Half Baked comes out earlier, so him and Chappelle probably just knew each other, and
Yeah, they were probably
I
friends
think
from Half Baked, I'm guessing, because they don't. I don't remember them interacting. Dave Chappelle plays this cab driver who's just called the Disco Cabbie, and he is apparently the only cab driver in all of New York City.
yeah, and like it seems like Chappelle put on this weird affect on his voice, where he has like a Bootsy Collins thing going on with it.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what he was doing. He was doing this deeper voice, and I'm watching the whole movie, and I'm just like, Dave Chappelle doesn't talk like that. What is he doing?
He
He
made it.
It's kind of weird.
he went method. That was
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
like, yeah, he's always like, hey,
fully
babe.
invested in that character.
Yeah, he's always like, hey, what's going on there, pretty mama? Shake it down, sugar. I was like, why are
yeah,
you talking like that, Dave?
yeah. I have that in my notes. I just have Dave Chappelle doing funky voice. Let's see who else we have. We have it says ditzy and awkward Cindy, who is on a dinner date with the paranoid Jack, and Cindy is played by Kate Hudson, and Jack is played by Jay Moore.
Right, Jersey's own Jay Moore.
Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah. I mean, with this character, Kate Hudson, you can definitely see where she got her acting chops to be in her future rom coms, because her character Cindy is like a straight up rom com character, just like a lot of falling down, like
Yeah.
almost like Inspector Clouseau esque, just
Yeah,
throughout this whole movie.
she's definitely like the most rom-com character in this movie.
yeah, she's like at first her thing is like she's super indecisive, um, and she's just real nervous, and we kind of find out what the deal is about that as the movie goes on. But like she's so indecisive to the point of being almost obnoxious.
Yeah,
I had a tough time liking her character, honestly, and I'll attribute that all to the writing, not to Kate Hudson, who I think is generally delightful. I mean,
yeah,
I was mad that she kept wearing the jacket after she fell in dog shit.
yeah, right.
yeah,
I was like, just get rid of it. Take the
yeah,
L. Get rid of that jacket.
yeah,
She
just
wore it the whole party. That's gross. No one said
Yeah,
anything. I would have kicked.
yeah,
Like, you gotta go with your shit
that's
covered jacket.
weird. Yeah, that's a thing that only somebody in a movie would do.
yeah, and like at one point she got into a cab with dog shit on her back. I'm like, that cab driver's gonna be so pissed. You're fucking up his cab there, lady.
Yeah, that's not right. But like her date Jack is somebody that she hooked up with the night before, and it kind of comes out over the course of the evening that the reason that Kate Hudson is so nervous and awkward and ditzy and indecisive is she actually lost her virginity to Jay Moore's character the night before.
Right. They bring that up, and yeah, and then after he learns that, because he didn't know, then he becomes more interested in her. It's like wanting to know what was it about him that made made her made her choose him to be the one to give her flower to him, as they say.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, he's fascinating by, but like the Kate Hudson's character, she's just kind of vaguely developed. I don't think we're ever told how old she is or anything, so we don't really know how long she's waited or why she's waited, or it's very vague.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's just like, I mean, it's Kate Hudson. She ain't easy on the eyes, and so like, but yeah, like it doesn't make sense that like it doesn't really answer why she waited so long for.
Yeah, yeah, and
But
I would have liked to have known that. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
because
absolutely.
I mean, because like Jay Moore, he's outright asking her at one point. He's like, "Well, what was it that made you say yes to me? Because you're an attractive lady. You must have had other opportunities, or even some close calls, or something like that." And yeah, we never really find out. I don't know if we're just supposed to guess or if we're not supposed to know. It was weird.
Yeah, like that storyline, I wasn't as kind of. I mean, it was an interesting storyline, but it wasn't. I wasn't as into it as.
It's not as
Yeah.
good as the Courtney Love Paul Rudd storyline. That's probably
Yes,
like the
I think
best
that.
one.
I agree. They were my favorite subplot. Okay,
Yeah.
those two. We got Lucy, who's Courtney Love, obviously, and her best friend Kevin, who is Paul Rudd with some glorious mutton chops.
Woo!
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Just
and
Bring him
Kevin is
back. He needs to bring it back.
yeah.
Resurgence.
It's time for mutton chops to come back. I
If
think.
Paul Rudd rocks mutton chops, everyone will start doing it. The mutton chop, the next mutton chops trend, it's on Paul Rudd's shoulders. It's
right.
all.
Yeah, I agree. Paul Rudd, bring the mutton chops back,
Bring 'em
please.
back.
The mutton
Please.
chop renaissance. We need it now more
Yes.
than ever.
Yeah. So Paul Rudd, his character Kevin, he's upset because his girlfriend dumped him the night before, and also New Year's Eve is his birthday. So I'm like, okay, first off, somebody dumped Paul Rudd. Is this a science fiction film? What the hell? He is a delight.
Have you seen those mutton chops?
Yeah, no, I mean he is a handsome, funny, charming man. I have a total heterosexual man crush on Paul Rudd, and I cannot believe that someone even in the world of this film would dump him. That just seems weird and wrong.
Really does.
Um,
But
but
yeah,
but he's hanging out with his friend Lucy, Courtney Love, and and he's being a grump, and she's trying to get him over that and over the hump. And speaking of humping,
yeah.
yeah, they got a little sexual tension happening. They've been friends for 5 years. Nothing's really happened between them, but this might be the night.
This might be the night. Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah. The hookup, like I think at one point where they do talk about like, well, how come we never hooked up type of thing.
yeah,
Like like the conversation you usually have with your platonic friend of the opposite sex, like how come we haven't hooked up?
hmm
And then I think I do like the line like where it gets worked up to the point where he says, "I dare you to fuck me."
uh
I
huh.
was like that. I was like, oh, that's a dare.
It's a conversation you don't hear a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's an offer I've ever gotten from any of my female friends. Or like, I dare you to hook me, because like, yeah, 99% of the time the answer will be like, okay, yes, I will have sex with you.
Right. And then
I
they
mean,
hook. Yeah.
I mean, if it's a dare,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean,
Can't.
yeah.
Yeah, and then they hook up in the diner bathroom while Captain and Tennille plays in the background. Well,
Mhm.
this is romance.
They seem remarkably determined to just fuck in public bathrooms, and I'm just like, wait, don't you people both have apartments? Why don't you just go back to one of your apartments?
I don't know. That just seems to be a thing that people. I mean, I don't know if they still do it, but like in your 20s in New York, that's definitely like hooking up in bathrooms is definitely a thing. Like I've never been a part of that, but I've definitely known a few of my friends that have gone down that road.
it's a rite of
Okay,
passage.
That's right.
I guess so. I guess so. All right. Well,
Also, they were on
I
the way to the party. I guess they didn't want to like take too much of a detour to one of their places.
but everybody shows up at the party like right before midnight. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's the one thing I thought was weird about the party because, like, yeah, it's like Martha Martha Plimpton's character Monica. She's waiting for people to come, and it's
yeah.
literally just her and her friend Hillary for up until like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and no one else is there.
And then like one person shows up, and then like late in the movie, somebody's like, "Oh, it's already after 11," and like there are like literally two people at Monica's party, and I'm just like, who shows up at a New Year's Eve party after 11?
I mean, if I were her, I'd be freaking out too. I'm just like, no,
Yeah,
this party should be popping off by now, and no one's here.
yeah. I mean, you shoot for 10. I mean, I think the only time I've shown up at a New Year's Eve party at or around 11 was when I'd gone to another New Year's Eve party before that.
Oh, my man.
And
Mr. Popularity.
Yeah, no, and this was New Year's Eve of 1999. Now that I think of it.
Oh, wow! At all.
I went to my best friend's New Year's Eve party, and I was like, well, I got to show up to that because best friend. And then I had to go to the other party to be there at midnight because my girlfriend was going to that party, and I was like, well, I can't, I've got to be with my girlfriend on the New Year's Eve, and we ended up breaking up on January 2nd.
Oh, wow. Happy New Year.
So, yeah. Oh, great start to the 2000s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. New century. New
millennium. The ball isn't the only
millennium.
Yeah. The ball isn't the only thing that got dropped.
Oh.
Yeah. And we were in that delicate place where like we kind of knew we were just about to break up too. So it was like, yeah.
Yikes.
Memorable New Year's Eve. Let me just say that.
Never forget it.
But yeah, I think the Paul Rudd Courtney Love subplot was the one I was most invested in this movie.
I mean, they had the most chemistry and
they did
back and forth, I thought.
Yeah.
I feel like this is at a time where like Courtney Love was like in a make or break situation with her film career. And I felt like she got a lot of focus because there was a time I just read this I read this Courtney Love biography recently.
Cool.
I had a friend just lend it to me, and like I'm kind of like a grunge nerd, so I'll read anything about grunge in the 90s. Mm-hmm. But the book was written in 1999. Wow. So her biography kind of ends with her just beginning to become an actor, and they kind of try to portray that she has this bright future as an actress in Hollywood. And I feel like when she got this role, I think that she just was more in the zeitgeist back then.
Yeah, because I mean, this movie came out after because I know the movie that really kind of put her on the map was The People versus Larry.
People versus Larry, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm looking it up. I mean, she was nominated for a number of awards for that, and I think she even was nominated for an Oscar, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to find that now.
Yeah, she had a real moment.
So. No, wait. Okay, she wasn't nominated for the Oscar, but she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress at Golden Globe. So, I mean, still, that's not nothing. And she got a lot of Film Critics Association awards for People versus Larry Flint. So this is a few years after this. And yeah, she was, you don't see her pop up in the movies anymore.
Not really. She's kind of taking a backseat to all that. Like, I don't know if it's because Hollywood isn't maybe knocking on her door as much.
She did call out Harvey Weinstein pretty much before anybody.
Oh,
yeah.
On a red carpet, like long time ago. And I mean, I'm not going to say that's the reason why her movie career fell apart, but she was definitely a day one Harvey Weinstein agitator.
Well, good for her. Good.
And
we know that he killed a lot of actresses' careers.
Courtney Love doesn't take any shit, so I don't think Hollywood likes that.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd like to see her come back to movies. I like her as an actor. Good stuff.
Yeah, no, she's really good.
Man on the Moon, she was great in that.
Oh yeah, Man on the Moon, which we covered that, didn't we, Darren?
We did. She was quite good in that as well. Yes.
Yeah. Also, I don't want to get off on too far of a tangent, but have you?
That's what we do here.
Cool. So you guys seen Man on the Moon? Have you guys seen the documentary about the filming behind it? What's it called? Jim versus Andy, or something? Jim and
Andy. Yeah.
So my favorite part of that documentary is like Jim Carrey is pissing everybody off on the set. He won't drop the routine, and then in the middle of filming, Courtney Love shows up, and she absolutely loves him. She's like, she's all for his insanity. And I thought that was just so delightful. Like that she was like a ray of sunshine for him, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd forgotten that, but that's very cool. That's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see. We got our next subplot. We've got that's Paul Rudd's feminist ex-girlfriend, Ellie, who walks in on Kevin and Lucy making out in a restroom stall. And that's Janine Garofalo's part.
Yes.
She just like, you're halfway through the movie and just like, sudden unexpected Janine Garofalo.
Yeah, she came in pretty late in the movie, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
But,
yeah.
But yeah. But I mean, she does well with the little screen time she has. But yeah, I always like Janine Garofalo. She's always a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I love Janine.
Yeah, she's not asked to do anything real strenuous. She's just kind of there to be the slightly acerbic Janine Garofalo type, as she was often cast. But she does well. It's like,
they're like, hey, Janine, we need you to show up and be yourself.
Yeah. We just need you to come and berate Paul Rudd for a few minutes. And she's like, yes, I am for that.
Yeah, and
I can believe that she dated Paul Rudd's character.
Yeah,
so.
I can see that. They're equally good looking.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets that one great line that I really liked when she hops into after she sees Paul Rudd and Courtney Love in the throes of passion. She leaves upset, gets into the cab driven by Dave Chappelle's character, and she tries to light a cigarette, and she's like, and she can't do it, and she says, "These matches are disappointing me."
That's a good line. She also drops, like, when she's talking to Paul Rudd after the aborted hookup between him and Courtney Love, she mentions that, like, she's living with her therapist because apparently she and Paul Rudd were living together.
Right.
And she moved out the day before, or at least is not sleeping at his place anymore. And she's like, oh yeah, I've spent the night with my therapist. And I'm like, oh, well, that sounds unhealthy for a host of reasons. Oh my God. What the hell's going on here?
Good gravy.
That sounds inappropriate on
that's a whole other movie.
That really is. I'm just like, let's hear about this. What sort of inappropriate shit's going on with Janine Garofalo and her therapist here?
Good heavens. But yeah, and there's also the other story plot line with Nicole Parker's character Bridget and Featherstone's character not Cheryl, Caitlin. Yeah, they're two friends, and Bridget is going out with this guy Eric, who's like this. I guess Ireland.
He's an artist, and he's Monica's ex. He's Martha Plimpton's ex. I wasn't familiar. Who is it that played Eric?
Shoot, I gotta look up his name.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Okay. Hang on. Let me. I have the trivia page open up, and let me open up the cast and crew page from the IMDb.
Okay.
Eric.
But yeah, I didn't recognize
Brian McCarty.
Okay.
Brian McCarty. Not familiar.
Not really. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I always feel a little bad for actors in this situation when they got to play a character who has like an unforgettable characteristic, like he's bad in bed.
Yeah.
Like now, if I ever saw this dude on the street, I'd be like, "Oh, I know you. You were the guy that was bad in bed in 200 Cigarettes." You know, like you kind of got to walk around the rest of your life with that stink on you, even though it's fictitious.
Yeah, even though it's your character who's bad in bed, and for all we know, Mr. McCarty is a wonderful lay.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's his main characteristic in this. We find out that Monica dumped him like 6 months before, and the main reason she dumped him was because he was the worst sex she ever had.
That's right.
Like even going back to when she was like in high school.
Wow. In high school, no one knows what they're doing at all.
Right. And I don't know. I wasn't too invested in Bridget and Caitlin. I just didn't. Again, I didn't think there was too much to their characters.
Yeah, it just seemed like, especially after Bridget dumped Eric, because it seemed like Eric wanted them to go to Monica's party because she's like, yeah, I told her we'd go because she was really freaking out that no one will show up. And Bridget's not cool with that, and that's like the last straw.
Yeah, she's like, why are you so attached to going to your ex-girlfriend's New Year's Eve party?
Which depending on how you broke up. Yeah.
trouble every time.
Yeah. I mean, depending on how you broke up with your ex, that could be a little weird. I will say that.
I mean, yeah, it's a valid question to ask. I think, especially like 6 months after a breakup. That's not too long.
Yeah, that's true. So like, and then after they break up, Bridget and Caitlin immediately want to hook up with the bartender, played by Ben Affleck, who catches a lot of
Yeah.
people's eye, including Courtney Love's character Lucy, who was there with Kevin earlier in
Right.
the movie.
Yeah, and she tips Ben Affleck off about the party. She like writes the address down on a napkin and slides that over to him.
Right, because that's what we did. That's what you did back in the 80s, because there were no cell phones.
Because
Yeah.
a bartender working at a bar in the village on New Year's Eve gets off his shift before midnight.
That's an excellent point.
I was like, what is he getting out at 10 p.m.? Like, missing the best hours.
We need you, but only until 11:45.
Wait, what? Yeah,
I didn't think of that, but damn, you are absolutely right. Yeah, he would be there until closing, so he'd be working at least until 2 a.m.
Right.
No one's gonna want drinks after midnight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. All right.
That kind of like I caught that. I was like, what? Like, this is insane.
Have you ever worked as a bartender, Josh? Or
Wait, what's that?
have you ever worked as a bartender?
No, but I've dated a couple.
Okay, all right. So you know about these things.
Yeah. I helped pour champagne one night for an ex on New Year's Eve. It was kind of fun, actually.
Oh yeah, that sounds
cool.
fun. Yeah, and does Ben Affleck ever get a character name in this, or is he just the bartender?
That's a good question.
He's just bartender. He's listed as bartender. That's it.
He's just bartender, and yeah, I think he was in this movie just like half as a favor to his brother Casey to get a little more heat on him. So,
Right.
and he tries to pick up Bridget and Caitlin at one point, but he's got a lot of lame lines like, oh, those are nice dresses. Those will look good crumpled up on my floor.
Right. I think it's the famous line that actually didn't make me laugh. Is like, oh, how do you like your eggs in the morning, scrambled or fertilized? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it seems like both the girls are into him. So they, after he gets out, they go to another bar and talk, and then they find out because he's a bartender in the village, so they just figure he's an artsy type. Or a struggling artist, and then he says, "Actually, no, I'm actually studying to be a lawyer," and he's like into Reaganomics and all that yuppie shit. So that immediately turned them off. They're like, "Oh, okay, this."
Yeah, that's the worst thing to be in 1981 in New York City.
Yuck.
Yeah, true. Yeah, New York's a pretty liberal town, so it's we're in the shit, I'm blanking on his name. The Mario Cuomo years. Wasn't Mario Cuomo governor of New York at this point?
Sounds about right.
So like Ed Koch was the mayor.
I was not expecting trivia on this podcast. I think that.
Well, I mean, it's not actually trivia. It's my vague memories. So.
It was so Ed Koch was definitely the mayor.
Okay, yeah, I know he was. He actually hosted SNL at one point.
Yes, he did. I saw that
during the Dick Ebersol years. Yeah, he was pretty popular for most of his time.
The governor was Hugh Carey.
I don't know that person. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, I guess Cuomo was after him.
Okay.
So, anyway.
Okay. But yeah, like the Caitlin and Bridget subplot, it kind of meanders a little bit. I thought it was okay, but yeah, it just seems like their main objective is to just hook up with somebody before midnight, because they don't want the new year to start off to be single, because I guess not hooking up or not kissing somebody is bad luck in the new year. I have heard that.
Movies and shows, they always paint that as like the most horrendous, tragic thing, as like, oh, it's New Year's Eve and you have no one to kiss at midnight. I've been single way more often on New Year's Eve than I've ever been in a relationship. So that's kind of the norm.
There is kind of this one sincere moment, though, when they're in the cab and Dave Chappelle's character gives them the advice about how they shouldn't let hooking up with guys like get in between their friendship.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
tells I forget, he told this story about a friend that I was like, man, this movie got really deep for like 2.5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember what he said. I didn't make a note of that. I didn't write down a whole lot of dialogue in this.
Yeah, it's a lot. It kind of goes all over the place. But yeah, he was talking about his friendship with his old friend that died and
Yeah.
like choked on a
Oh,
string
that's right.
bean.
Yeah, and they were both after the same woman, and yeah.
Right. So then then the two girls or the two women, they say, yeah, we'll make a pledge not to go home with anybody tonight because we're good friends in friendship. But as we'll see at the end of the movie, they both
Yeah.
actually get ride the pole. As they
I was gonna say, do we talk
I,
spoilers on this podcast?
yeah, yeah. Darren, I love that you're conscious enough to call them women instead of girls, but then 2 minutes later you said they both rode the pole.
I think that was 19. That was slang in 1981. I'm pretty sure
That was 1981, Darren. That was 1981. Darren was a pig.
Yeah, I was a real piece of shit
with a weird accent.
Yep.
With the Bootsy Collins voice.
Oh, what's going down, baby?
Is that what he was doing? Was he doing Bootsy Collins?
It really sounded like he was doing some Bootsy Collins shit. Like, oh, what's up there, sugar mama? Looking all sweet. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Like, it was a lot of that. I was like, all right, Dave. This is what you want to do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess he was like, hey, I'm not going to be famous for Chappelle's Show for a few more years. I can get away with this.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I was watching this and I felt like I was watching this movie when everybody else on social media was watching his new stand-up special, which I'm so behind on and still haven't seen. And
I haven't seen it either. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like this weird feeling. I'm like, oh, the whole world is talking about Dave Chappelle, and here I am just watching him play like this like goofy disco drive-in cab driver in a movie from 90. I don't know. It was just kind of weird. I was like,
yeah, he was a different dude back then. Although there is one line at the end of the movie he says that kind of brings it right back to modern day.
Oh yeah. I know the one you mean. Yeah. At the end of the movie, they're showing like Polaroids of the party the night before.
Right.
And it kind of reminded me of like the end of The Hangover, where you're seeing the Polaroids from the party. And at one point he's like, oh yeah, and there was this one woman and she turned out to be a dude. And I'm like, whoa, okay, there's a weird
that was
foreshadowing.
Weird. That was it was like, oh, he's been on this material for 25 years now.
Yeah. Because like I feel like it really does a disservice to his character, because his character seemed to be like, free love. Yeah, let's just ride with it, baby. We all love and God's children. It's cool, man. But then he does this thing where he's like, oh yeah, that was at this party, and then this ugly woman tried to step to me, and I don't usually call women ugly, but this woman was ugly because she had a penis. And I was like,
yeah.
I was like, Jesus, where'd that come from?
You gotta wonder, was this in the script? Was this Dave Chappelle improving? I don't know. I don't know if I want to know, but
yeah, it felt like he added that in, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean, knowing that he's really riding the anti-trans train hard for reasons I don't understand.
Yeah, it's so disappointing. He was like,
yeah,
I thought he was so much better than that, but I guess not. It's a bummer.
Yeah,
yeah. I guess, I don't know. It feels like one of those double down things, right? Like people accuse you of doing something, and you're like, oh yeah, well I'm gonna do it more, like to defy.
Right, like he built his brand by being outrageous, and this is the thing that people are most offended by. So this is what I'm going to keep joking about.
Yeah, but I mean, he wasn't even that outrageous back in the day. He was just like super funny and really had like well done, thoughtful jokes. And now he just seems to be on this platform where he's like, a lot of his jokes just talk about how great he is and how rich he is. It seems like, and it's like that's not where comedy comes from.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
Like, no one wants to see how awesome you are. Fuck that noise.
Yeah, Louis C.K. has a yacht, but he never talks about it.
He does? I didn't know that.
I think, I don't know, but somebody told me he has a yacht.
Yeah, I think on his episode of
I heard it from a dude
getting coffee, I think he goes on his boat with Jerry Seinfeld. I think he's like driving. I don't remember, was it a yacht? I'm picturing it as like a ferry or something, but I think Louis C.K. did own it. Yeah.
Oh right.
Like disgusting rich.
Yeah, but like a lot of disgustingly rich celebrities, he kind of kept it on the down low because they know it's not really relatable.
Yeah.
And so you just enjoy that, and you maybe talk about it with other celebrities, but you don't talk about it because the general public cannot relate because they are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, no one wants to hear about your issues. Like, oh yeah, you know how it is when you spill champagne in your limousine. Don't you hate that, guys?
Yeah, I remember like reading the oral history of SNL, the Live from New York book. And there's a quote in there at one point where Tom Hanks is like, you know how when you meet royalty, they're really boring? And I'm just like, no, Tom Hanks, I don't know about that. I've never met royalty. And it was so surprising because it's Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks is usually good at being like relatable everyman guy. But he was just like, hey, you know how when you meet royalty, sometimes they're really boring? And I'm just like, no, I don't. I can't relate to that experience at all, Tom Hanks.
I mean, was he saying that as like a joke or?
Well, it was in print, so it's totally tough. You can't tell if he's saying that ironically or something, but in print, a lot of times sarcasm doesn't come across.
Yeah, it's like, you know how it is when you drive into Buckingham Palace.
Yeah. And Prince Charles keeps telling this really boring story about his servants, and
I'm like, come on, get on with it, Chuck.
Yeah,
wrap it up.
So yeah,
but yeah, I mean, out of all these, I also, well, like I said, like I enjoyed the storyline with Kevin and Lucy, Rudd and Love. But I also kind of like the storyline between Val and Steffi, Christina Ricci and Gabby Hoffman's character, where they're two. They never say how old they are, but you get the sense they're like high school age, and like they're taking a train in from Long Island, and they're just looking for where this party's at, which is something that's totally avoidable nowadays. You just pull out your phone and call them.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, Christina Ricci, she's lost the address for the party, and her friend Steffi is saying, just call your mother and get the address of your cousin. And she's like, oh, I can't do that because my mom thinks I'm spending the night with you. And like her plan is she's going to go to this party and hopefully hook up with somebody.
My mother thinks she thinks I'm at your house.
They're going all the way on the New York accent.
It's outrageous.
It's like Fran Drescher thick, like Marissa Tomei. Yeah. Like Marissa Tomei and My Cousin Vinny, like that type of thickness.
Yeah.
Like I'd be almost embarrassed to watch it with somebody who's really from Long Island.
Long Island, yeah.
They're putting on Long Island face.
They're going all the way though with the accent. They're making some bold choices.
Christina Ricci heard Dave Chappelle's accent and she's like, "Oh, I'll one up that."
Yeah,
hold my beer, Dave Chappelle.
But yeah, it would have been. Yeah, they don't get into how old they are. Like so many of the characters in this are just sort of vaguely defined. And yeah, I would have liked to have known how old Val and Steffi are.
I'm assuming because like I only assume that they're like high school age or maybe high school senior because they like because Val had to tell her mom that she's at Steffi's house, whereas if they were in college, she wouldn't have to do that. So
doesn't Christina Ricci's character tell Jay Moore she's 16 or 17 at the very end?
Oh, holy shit! Oh, okay.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Let's talk about that.
We've got some statutory stuff going on there. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Like they hook up and Jay Moore's like, wait a minute, how old are you? And I forget what I could have sworn it was 16 or 17 though.
Yeah. It's like
that flew over my head if they said that.
It's like you looked a lot older last night.
Was
like, oh, Jesus.
The age of consent younger in 1981 in New York State? I don't know.
Yeeks. But I do like how, the two of them were trying to find this party in the East Village or an Alphabet City, back when Alphabet City was kind of dangerous. And Steffi was like very adamant about not going past Avenue B because she heard somebody got raped down there. And you can tell. I did like how like they when they filmed everything on set apparently, and like you do get to see a little bit of the old New York of how it was in the 80s because it was in New York. I don't know because like I knew about it from like the early aughts when it was having its sort of second renaissance, like back when New York was kind of getting cool again when like the yeahs were just come out and the Strokes and
right
TV on
Darren used to live in New York, everyone.
I don't want to brag, but
he doesn't talk about it a lot. But
during
Darren
the
used to listen to
garage rock revival era.
right. I
It was
saw
a good era. It was a good era to go bar hopping in New York City because,
it
like,
really was. Yeah.
it was like I felt like the hipster movement was kind of cool before, like, it like became kind of like I don't know. Hipsters became something to make fun of. I want to say somewhere around like 2005 or 2006, but before that, like before it had a name, really, it was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
It was like Brooklyn was actually still pretty cool to hang out in.
Yeah.
You could see like some like Death from Above or something like that, or TV on the radio, some band you never heard of, like just get their start. It's always that's another thing I always like when you see a band that hasn't blown up just yet, but you got to see them before they blew up.
Right, like they're like just about to break or something. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's like you're sending them off.
Yeah. Any of you guys have stories like that or no?
Oh,
I saw. Well, I mean, I was mostly going into the city in the early 2000s to see comedy instead of music because I was much more of a comedy nerd than a music nerd. And I'm not really hip enough to be like seeing bands before they break. So I would go to Invite Them Up in the Village, which was the weekly comedy show at Rafifi that
Nice.
was run by Bobby Tisdale and Eugene Merman, and we saw like a lot of comedians there. Reggie Watts would play there on a regular basis.
Oh, wow.
This was before
nice.
he was on the Late Late Show with James Corden. So, Reggie Watts certainly wasn't anything like a household name at that point. So I guess that's on the verge of cool.
That's pretty
But
cool.
I was going there, so I don't consider it to be. It couldn't have been that cool because I was going there. So
don't sell yourself short.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the closest.
I was cool. I had a goatee.
Yeah, you know what's up.
That's all you needed.
Yeah, had a bowling shirt. You knew the score.
I don't think I was quite hip enough to be wearing bowling shirts yet.
You weren't. You didn't go full swingers where they get the wallet chain and all that stuff.
No, my friend Frankie would. He wore the wallet chain in the '90s, though. Yeah,
nice.
He was the cool guy who would like go into the city and go into see concerts at Maxwell's in Hoboken. And,
nice.
I love Maxwell's. Maxwell's was my favorite. That was my CBGBs.
Yeah, Maxwell's was awesome. I saw quite a few shows at Maxwell. So, just over the river from the city. So
very nice.
What about you, Darren?
I guess the closest one I saw was I probably talked about it in the podcast when I saw the Black Eyed Peas open for Outkast.
Wow.
Years like 97, maybe 98. But yeah, it was at this bar that's not around anymore, Tramps, where they had a lot of hip hop shows there. Like I saw Tribe Called Quest there and De La Soul there. I didn't go, but like I knew that like Eminem did a show there, like just as his first album dropped, just as like there was this buzz that he was going to be the next big thing, and he did a show there. But that was like for like $20 or something. But yeah, that was a pretty cool show. I didn't go to, but still, I knew about it.
I remember I once like a group of friends of mine and it was somebody's birthday, and we went to the bar in the city that Coyote Ugly was based off of. I think it's Hogs and Heifers.
Oh, yeah. That's Meatpacking District. Yes, I've been there.
Yeah. I just went there that one time, and it's where like women are the female patrons are encouraged to like get up and dance on the bar.
Yes,
but they're also like really conscious of everyone's safety, and like on the walls behind the bar, like the women are encouraged to like take off their bras and hang them up on the wall. They do that cool woman thing where you take off the bra without taking off your shirt and you slip it out through the sleeve, and that's the thing. And they sort of keep that there on the wall as a souvenir. And I remember like they're very conscious. They were very protective of every woman. Like if you're like trying to feel somebody up or something, they will boom shut you down.
Yeah. That's probably one thing I did like about this movie. Like you get to see the old New York where it was like kind of grimy and dirty. A lot of call 200 cigarettes. A lot of smoking everywhere. A lot of smoking in diners, smoking in bars. Like I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. There were like sometimes you go into like a dive bar with like peanut shells and hay on the floor. and people just
Yeah,
smoking.
yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I remember this.
I mean, at least part of this was shot in New York City. It looked like the real New York to me, right?
Yeah, there was one corner that was definitely like somewhere in the village. I was like, oh yeah, I recognize
Yeah.
that building.
So I mean, even if they only just did a bit of location shooting and then they shot the rest on sets or something like that, I think they did enough and they spaced it out through the movie. It felt like they were in the real New York throughout.
Yeah, no, for sure, absolutely. Yeah, so with all these storylines, they sort of merge and coalesce into, like you said, like we said, all of them coming to the party at like 11 o'clock at night, and I think at this point,
Hmm.
it's just Monica freaking out that it's just her and her friend Hillary. Her ex Eric comes in, and
Right.
and then that's where Monica, like, she screams at Monica about like getting dumped, and it's like, why did you dump me? And then that's where Monica says, yeah, you're a terrible lover. And
Yeah.
then like Hillary comes in, and then she and Eric hook up, and they have a good time. And Monica becomes so depressed, she drinks herself she drinks herself to passing out. And then
Yes.
that's when everybody gets to the party, and like all the wildness happens. And then they show,
Right.
and then the movie continues like with the next morning, which I wasn't expecting to see, like
We
morning
never
after.
really see the party. We see a bunch of people arriving, and then it kind of cuts to the next morning, and then we see a lot of characters waking up.
Right.
And of course, we have some unexpected hookups. Most of the hookups are just like random, where to the point of like, wait, why did these two get together? Because we've never seen them interact
Yeah,
previously in the movie.
yeah. I thought the Jay Moore Christina Ricci one was really weird.
Yeah.
That was weird. Yeah.
But hey, even Elvis Costello got some. So
Oh yeah, pump it up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Monica, Martha Plimpton's character, she wakes up the next morning and she finds out from Steffi, Gabby Hoffman's character, and they don't really know each other. She's just like, "Oh, I'm friends with your cousin," and then she's like, "Oh yeah." Then this band played, and it was like Elvis somebody, and he was complimenting the crab dip you made, and and Monica's freaking out because she's like, "Oh my god." Elvis Costello and the Attractions were playing at my party, which is incredible.
Right.
And apparently, in the real New Year's Eve 1981, Elvis Costello and the Attractions, they were playing a gig in New York City, uh, but they were not here at fictional character Monica's party.
Right. I think they were like Palladium on 14th Street, East 14th Street, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, and they were only about like 6 blocks away from the party, and I'm
Right.
like, okay, well, that's cool. So I guess it's conceivable he could have been at the party later after the concert or something, but
Right.
and I think they could have, because like she's freaking out at the end, but I think they could have played up her Elvis Costello fandom earlier in the movie to make it clear what a big deal it is for her.
Yeah, like that was kind of weird to me. I mean, they kind of showed that where like they had that
Yeah.
close up of the record player, and like there was, I forget which album cover it was, but I know it was
You
Elvis.
see the albums of two of Elvis Costello's famous albums, "My Aim Is True" and "Armed Forces," which great choices. Those are like his second and third albums. Those are wonderful. Those are two of my all time favorites.
Yeah, and
Um,
I guess they thought that was enough to convey that she's a huge Elvis Costello fan, but it really wasn't.
it really wasn't. They should have done more with that, and then that moment at the end would have hit harder because
Yeah.
if she bonded with somebody else over her fandom for Elvis, or I mean, basically, I just want everyone in this movie to talk about how cool Elvis Costello is.
Right.
Who doesn't? Yeah, and also in this movie we see that Bridget hooked up with the bartender, Ben Affleck's character. Caitlin
Yeah,
hooked up with Dave Chappelle, the cab driver,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
very random. Yeah,
very random. Like, I mean, they kind of show it because she was flirting with him, and like when they were in the cab, and then she does give
yeah,
him her phone number on a matchbook. So they did kind of set that up. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
but the whole thing with Casey Affleck's character Tom and Kate Hudson hooking up, that came out of nowhere.
I was like, these are the most arbitrary character matchups ever. I was like, did you just like choose names out of a hat? What is going on?
I mean, they kind of filled that in with the Polaroids at the end, because like I feel like the Polaroids at
Yeah,
the end kind of filled in the gaps as to what happened because they never show the party. They just show
Yeah.
What happened before the party and after it. So the Polaroids kind of filled in those gaps a little bit, and they do show Polaroids of Tom and Cindy kind of having meeting up and sort of vibing each other. So I guess
Yeah,
that's
but
enough.
I don't know. It's not too fun to find out how they hooked up after the fact, because like we just see these two characters who've never interacted in the movie before this waking up together, and I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. I'm not like, oh, I was hoping those two would find each other, and I was rooting for those two.
Yeah, I hear
I
what you're
mean,
Yeah,
I
it
saying.
was
just
I
seems
was
like
kind of
yeah, it just seemed like the theme was that there was no theme, right? It's like, oh, hookups are random, it's New Year's Eve.
Yep.
yeah, maybe that's what they were going for. I don't know. Like I
The only
was
one that made sense was Courtney Love and Paul Rudd.
Yes.
exactly because we see them interacting through the whole movie, and they were the characters that I found the most interesting. So I was those were the two I was rooting for the most to get together, because I did think that Paul Rudd and Courtney Love had a cool offbeat chemistry in the movie. So
Yeah. And they played a little
and
Roxy music at the end, which I always loved that song.
yeah, again, great soundtrack. And Paul Rudd says when they wake up the next morning, he's like, "Oh, I'm quitting smoking," because like earlier in the movie, she buys him a case of 200 cigarettes, and apparently that's where they get the title from.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think he says something at the end about how he read somewhere that cigarettes are a shield against meaningful interactions with other people, and people relate to
Hmm.
cigarettes instead of each other. So that's probably his way of saying, people use cigarettes as like a defense mechanism to get to know people. So he's done with smoking because he wants to get to know people and get to know Lucy and find the love within.
Yeah, find the Courtney Love within.
Oh, hey.
He's in love. Heyo.
Yeah. Oh my, literally.
That's 1981's Darren. He's back.
Yeah. but
But yeah, then they show the Polaroid pictures, and
yeah.
it's basically Chappelle doing the voiceover. I liked how they had this
Mhm.
one picture of Ben Affleck's character, the bartender, and
Yeah.
he said, "Oh yeah, and the guy from Happy Days was there, Potsy." I don't know why he chose.
So random.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And we have, in addition to Elvis Costello's brief cameo early in the film, he shows up in the Polaroids at the end, and yeah, he's there. He's just was partying the night away with the various characters.
yeah, he's posing with a passed out Monica in some pictures as well.
Yeah, like Dave Chappelle is calling him a necrophiliac because apparently he was carrying the unconscious Monica around over the course of the evening.
As you do.
So I guess, good sport of Elvis Costello to let himself be called a necrophiliac in a movie.
He gets the last laugh and he gets to hook up with Janine Garofalo.
My man.
Yeah, and we don't see him in bed with Janine Garofalo. We just see Janine Garofalo waking up, and then we see a voice saying like, "Hey, where are my glasses?" And his glasses are in the bowl of the crab dip, and Martha Plimpton picks it up and she like licks the crab dip off his glasses because it's 1981 and Elvis Costello is super sexy.
Yeah, he's hot. And yeah, that's the movie. Really interesting film, I thought. I don't know if I would recommend this film to everyone, but it definitely has like a nice vibe to it, I thought, overall.
I'm going to watch it every year once a year from now on.
Really? You liked it that much?
Yeah, and I just kind of like that there's a holiday movie for New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like now that we've talked about the movie, like we've kind of like found like a lot of silly stuff in the movie. But I mean, overall, I just think it's like a fun time. It's a fun movie. There's like a lot of fun dialogue and back and forth in it. It's not too heavy either, so it's like you can kind of just watch it and it's like breezy. It's not no heavy lifting mentally to
yeah, it is pretty light. It's not, we don't find out any like heavy stuff about any of the characters. Like nobody has a tragic backstory or anything. Yeah. We don't find out that Jay Moore's Jack did something heinous to Kate Hudson's Cindy the night before.
Oh dear God!
He was just a little bit of a dick or something.
Yeah. And I mean, I know we've talked about it before, but yeah, the soundtrack to this thing is pretty legit. Like you start off with some, I Want Candy, then they play like Ladies Night, you hear some Blondie, you hear some
Mm-hmm.
Buzzcocks, you hear
Yeah. Yeah.
you hear like Pump, you hear some Elvis Costello, you hear Pump It Up, you hear Cruel to Be Kind at one point.
Yeah.
I mean, what, Just What I
Which,
Needed.
which is a song he wrote, but he the most famous recording was not him. It was oh God, what was the name of the
Oh,
guy who recorded? Oh, it was
Eric.
no.
I think,
Cruel to Be Kind was Nick Lowe.
right, yeah, Nick Lowe.
Nick Lowe, who produced a lot of Elvis Costello's early albums,
Right,
and is a fantastic musician in his own right.
right.
So,
So yeah, you hear that. You hear what else?
There's a Ramones song in there.
Some
mm-hmm,
Ramones song there.
mm-hmm.
You hear some Betty Davis Eyes. You hear some Tainted Love. I
Dire
mean,
Straits.
it's just banger after banger
Yeah.
in the
Yeah,
soundtrack.
it's a
Joe
wonderful
Jackson.
chosen.
I mean, come on.
Joe, I love Joe Jackson. He's terrific. I mean, like the pop punk of 1982 and like the new wave, that is my jam. I love hearing music and songs from that era so much. So I
Yeah,
really dug that.
I know. And I mean, speaking of which, John, you mentioned that there was like that Harvey Danger connection to this
Yeah,
movie.
Harvey Danger, which vastly underrated band in my mind. Love them. They recorded a cover of the song by the Beat, or the English Beat as we know them here in the U.S. They recorded "Save It for Later," and I actually first heard the Harvey Danger cover for "Save It for Later" before I ever heard the original from the English Beat.
Mm.
This is kind of goes back to my not being terribly cool. But I love that song, and that's a song that, well, I wouldn't say it turned me on to Harvey Danger because I think I'd already heard Flagpole Sitta by that point, but it made me more of a Harvey Danger fan, and and they did a really clever music video where they kind of inserted themselves into the movie, not like with CGI or anything, but just through clever cutting and doubles. And I think I find the music video a little more entertaining than I found the
Oh
movie.
wow. Okay.
It is a fun
Yeah,
music video.
it is a fun video. I mean, we see, because like the lead singer of Harvey Danger, Sean Nelson, he wears glasses not unlike Elvis Costello's glasses. So we see him playing the song at the party at one point. He takes off his glasses, he puts them in a bowl. Then we see Martha Plimpton reach into the bowl, get the glasses, lick the dip off the glasses, and then he takes the glasses back and then licks the dip off the other lens and then puts them back on his face. Which I'm
Nice.
like, okay, that's pretty cute. We see the band kind of coming together over the course of the video. Like the drummer gets into the back of Dave Chappelle's cab with all of his drums, and we see like the other two members of the group stalking Christina Ricci and Gabby Hoffman, and then they start playing the song, and then they just sort of laugh, and then they follow them dancing out of the alley, and they have some good doubles, and they do a nice job of matching the footage. I'm like, this is pretty good for a music video, man.
Yeah, no, it's a solid video. Like, guys, give it a
Yeah.
look. See, yeah, I mean, just because, I mean, like most people, I just know Harvey Danger from Flagpole Sitta. That's like their big hit. So
Mm-hmm.
I haven't
Yeah,
listened
same.
to. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not too familiar with like the full album or the full discography, but then you mentioned he's like, yeah, no, they actually have a lot more to offer musically than that one hit. Like if you dig into their stuff, there's like
Yeah,
really good
yeah,
stuff
they
there.
are worth checking out. I would recommend Harvey Danger. That the album that Flagpole Sitta is on, "Where Have All the Merrymakers Gone," uh, good stuff. That came out, I think, around '98, something like that. And
Okay.
I still listen to that now. And they did some some great songs, not hit songs, but some great songs. And I found a while back, I found a cool video on YouTube from Chris Troiano, who I think is like a hardcore Harvey Danger fan, and it goes all into kind of how they ended up recording their cover of "Save It for Later" for this movie. And like MTV went to Harvey Danger and they were like, "Oh, we want you on this soundtrack. Can you cover a song from like 1981, 1982, something like that?" And they went through this whole thing, and they went through this whole process of determining it, and then the label kind of manipulated them into covering Save It for Later because they had the rights to releasing the Beat or the English Beats old albums. So
Oh wow.
they were, yeah. So they later said that, oh, we were kind of tricked into recording the song, but it's a great cover.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
It's a great cover, and yeah, I'll have to post that that video from the on the SNL Nerds Twitter account. If you're, I found it fascinating personally, just all the sort of behind the scenes machinations that went on between the label and the band.
Oh, the labels.
Yeah, but
music industry beat music
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We
showed them though.
Sure did. Yeah, and that's our episode, guys. 200 cigarettes. I mean, I liked it ultimately, but yeah, I can understand how it could maybe not be everybody's cup of tea, but it definitely has a vibe to it that I dug.
I dig the vibe.
Dig the vibe, bruh.
Also, the best New Year's Eve. Is there a better New Year's Eve movie? Is there another New Year's Eve movie?
I'm still going to go with The Apartment, I think.
All right. Well, now got to add that to my to-do list. I've never seen that.
Billy Wilder, man, amazing movie. That's a great movie.
When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah, when Harry Met Sally. That's a big New Year's Eve thing. End of Days, that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that ends on New Year's Eve, doesn't it?
Strange Days.
Strange Days. I hear that's good. I've never seen all of Strange Days.
I've never seen it, but like I know, like because like whenever we around this time we look for movies to talk about, I always do like a search of New Year's Eve movies, and that always pops up. Yeah, like honestly, if somebody from SNL was in that movie, I would have suggested it a long time ago.
Yeah. I'm not opposed to watching Strange Days. Maybe we should just do that as bonus content and for the Patreon or something.
Maybe.
But yeah, I thought it was all right. Like Darren said, I kind of like the vibe of it, but I felt like most of the characters were just kind of dull. I just felt like they were sort of undeveloped. So I wasn't rooting for too many. I outside of like Courtney Love and Paul Rudd, I was never like, oh yay, we're back to this subplot. I was just like, oh, okay, we're back to this random person. And so I didn't find it real memorable. I'm glad you liked it so much though, Josh.
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's definitely like it's more like a highlight reel than a story being told.
I would say that. Like it's more you can like if you're somebody in your 20s who has been that guy or gal just in New York, just like trying to find a party or just like trying to hook up on New Year's Eve or just like trying to figure out your life, roaming the streets of New York City. I think a part of you will connect to this movie in some way.
Yeah, the nostalgia of youth. I mean, I don't even think it has to be New York City specifically. Just like when you're young, like there's just so much importance you put on going to the right party, and being with the right people. And it's hard for me to watch this movie and not have like my own flashbacks about what I was doing when I was in my late teens, early 20s for New Year's Eve.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it did make me think on like my New Year's Eve 1999. It inspired me to create a new letterbox list of the Elvis Costello cinematic universe. So I was just like, I'm gonna list movies that Elvis Costello's had a cameo in. We've got this,
and Elvis Costello ties into SNL really well.
Oh yeah, that is one of my all-time favorite SNL moments where he comes on and he plays a few bars of Less Than Zero, and then he just thinks, fuck this, I'm not doing this. And then he plays Radio, which, as the story goes, Lord Michaels was not happy about that.
Yeah. You know what? One of my favorite moments, I'm a huge Beastie Boys fan.
Oh, yeah.
And when the Beastie Boys come on and they're about to play Sabotage, and then Elvis Costello comes out and he's like, I'm sorry, there's no reason for you to do this. And then they do Radio with the Beastie Boys. I'm like, oh man, that's it's like his triumphant comeback, and it's like with my favorite band backing him up. And you can almost see in Ad Rock's face, like he's just like, I can't believe this is happening right now. Like he's like the Beastie Boys just seem to be in such a pure moment of joy for them.
they are giddy. That was the moment it was on the 25th anniversary special. And yeah, I mean, and I loved it because I love the Beastie Boys. I love Elvis Costello, and I'm like, Elvis Costello is so cool. He used the Beastie Boys as his backing band.
Right.
That's incredible.
That is cool. That is super cool. Yeah,
that is super cool, and and it's become such a watershed moment in SNL history, and it's so funny because like Elvis Costello, when he did that in the 70s, this was like 1978, I think that he did that. He was banned from the show for the next 10 years or so, but he says, yeah, but every time somebody does something unexpected on that show, I get calls from reporters again.
Right. Yeah, he's always going to be, famous for many things, but one of the things, being like the original rebel rouser of SNL.
Yeah, and he said he was like partially inspired by somebody on some British show who stopped playing the song they were supposed to play and just played the song they wanted to play instead. And he was just like, it's a live show, so I thought that was okay. But I think part of the reason they were so PO'd at him was because it threw both the camera blocking off and it threw the timing of the show off.
Yeah, right. Like the show went long because he decided to switch up the song. Yeah, I get it, but
yeah. And if you watch the video, you can see Elvis Costello sort of looking angrily off to the side of the stage, and the story goes that like Lorne Michaels was just standing off camera, like giving him the finger throughout. and at the end of the song, they just like unplug and just walk right off stage.
It's probably one of the most punk rock moments in TV history.
Yeah, it really is. It really is, and I love it so much. It's a great moment, and
wow, yeah, and that's our episode, guys. Thanks again for listening to the podcast. Josh, thanks for being on. Thanks for being our first guest.
This is awesome. This is a good time.
Yeah. Love talking to you. And hey, check Josh out. He's got a regular stand-up comedy show called the Hell Yeah Comedy Show. Where can people check that out, Josh?
North Bergen, New Jersey. The name of the venue is Wawa Social Club. The next one is January 19th. So will this be out by then? I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. This will be out on the 8th. So
cool. So it gives you 11 days to get your life in order and come to Hell Yeah Comedy.
That's right.
I also, if you don't mind, if I could plug my newsletter, I write a newsletter. I just talk about what I'm watching or what books I'm reading, what have you. And I'd actually written about 200 cigarettes in my last newsletter. And I think that's what led to me coming on here today to talk to you fine gentlemen about this movie. But you can check that out. It's called the Josh Wells Weekly, joshwells.substack.com. And the obligatory Instagram plug at Josh Ain't Funny.
Oh, I love that. That's a great handle.
I chose it very early in my comedy days, and I'm just going to stick with it. I don't care. I will always not be funny, I guess, on Instagram.
I always love comedians who are self-deprecating.
Yeah.
And I don't tend to like comedians who are like, oh, this person's the funniest, and they have a tag that's like if you had Josh is funny, I wouldn't respect you as much as a comic.
Yeah, and a lot of comics do use those kind of handles, and I'm like, okay, but good for you for having great self-esteem. I'm a Conan O'Brien guy.
Yes.
He was his like monologues, like he was just, even throughout the shows, he was just always so great at being self-deprecating, but like to a point where it was like humorous and not like sad or depressing or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the level you want to find, and those are the comic voices that speak to me. Unless you have like this really over the top bravado that's obviously ironic. Like Todd Barry, if you follow him on Twitter, he is a master at that. The basic joke of his Twitter is that he's like this huge selling out stadiums, gets standing ovations every night comedian. And the reality is he's a brilliant comedian, but he's just kind of a working stiff.
Yeah.
So that's funny.
Absolutely.
Todd Barry is funny.
Yes.
Yeah, Todd Barry is funny.
Josh ain't funny.
Josh ain't funny. So check him out on Substack.
Check him out. Yeah. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all the handles at Darren Credible, DARIN Credible. And of course, you can follow this podcast at SNL Nerds Show.
Yeah. And if you want to follow me, I'm on the various social medias at Trumbull Comic, TRUMBULL, and the word comic. So, follow all of us. Darren, what are we doing next week?
Next week, we are going to be doing a brand new movie that's going to be dropping on Hulu. The film called Self-Reliance. It's
Self-Reliance.
Written and directed by Jake Johnson of New Girl fame, starring Jake Johnson, starring
of New Girl fame.
Sorry,
of New Girl fame.
Of New Girl fame. Anna Kendrick, Emily Hampshire, who was in Schitt's Creek, and Andy Samberg is in it. And the film is produced by The Lonely Island.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. This is going to be interesting. I like Jake Johnson. We watched the trailer of this, and we were like, "Yeah, this looks funny. Let's check this out." And apparently, Andy Samberg is playing himself in this, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, he's playing like a fictionalized version of himself, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes with it. But yeah, it looks like a pretty interesting premise. The man receives an offer to win $1 million by playing a game where he must outwit hunters who are trying to kill him. And he soon realizes that they can only attack him when he's alone. But none of his friends or family believe the game is real.
I would be dead so fast.
That's so sad. So alone.
I mean, I put in a good effort, but oh my god, I spend so much time alone, folks.
Happy New Year, everybody.
I'm just saying. I need more friends.
So next week, Self-Reliance.
Self-Reliance. We're going to check that out, and we're looking forward to that. That's on Hulu, you said, right?
Yep, Hulu.
All right. So that'll be next week. So join us for that. But until then, Nerds out.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.